Welcome to my driveway garden. This is one of those days when I come out to harvest just one zucchini and find that the garden has other plans. Well, I was just walking by these stock tanks on my way to the potting bench and saw the striped zucchini in here. And so it gave me the idea I need to go on a zucchini hunt. So come along with me and we're gonna hunt down some zucchini. Okay, well, from this plant here, I got this striped zucchini, and then I just got from back here, there's a couple of these yellow zucchinis, but this one was the biggest one. I like to get them when they're small, but they still have to have some size to them. So that's pretty good. Let's go check out the other plants around the garden and see what else we can find. Okay, I got this big old plant here in the west side bed. This is a classic Black Beauty zucchini plant, and there's one little one there, but there's a big one hiding back here. Got it. There we go. All right. Stuffing my zucchini harvest in my apron pocket here. It's not my intended harvest container, but makes it easy. There's one more right over here, a big yellow zucchini here that I didn't see developing earlier. Got one that's a dead bud. But this is one of those, this is the crookneck yellow zucchini, and it is, I noticed being out here that there was not only these zucchinis, but as I went on the zucchini hunt, I saw some broccolis and some beets. So there's definitely other stuff out here to into, but I don't want that to detour me from my other missions in the garden today. So I'll return to what I was doing and then maybe come back to those other harvests in a bit. Well, this is not a happy task, but it is something that I'm doing for my peace of mind or my mental discipline, I guess, as much as for any other reason. And that is emptying, getting rid of these tomato plants here now that we are into the first week of July. I mean, I could nurse these along, plant them, maybe try to find a place to grow them, but you know, they're a bit scraggly, they need to be potted up, and really I'm not gonna have space for it. And I've got lots of tomato plants, as you've seen, I'm growing. I guess that's a relative statement as to what lots means and for what size garden you're used to growing, I suppose. But in any case, it's better for me to just terminate them and then not have them around, so I'm not looking at them, thinking about them, trying to figure out what I can do with them. So this is a psychological reset as much as a structural reset in the garden. And what I'm doing, and the potting soil that's around the roots, and you know, really I let some of the roots get into that as well, as I'm reusing. So I'm using this to fill these empty ice cream buckets, and then once I've got these filled, then I'm gonna go plant some flowers in here, and the things that I do have that still can be reasonably planted for the rest of summer here. So that's what this activity is about. Despite the fact that I should do this across the board with everything, I'm still holding on to a few peppers and a couple of eggplants, just kind of like maybe I'll come up with some brilliant idea of where to put them. Especially the peppers, you know, especially those small peppers, they can survive a little bit longer, and they'll probably, if I still plant them out in the next couple of weeks, I'll probably get something from them. The eggplants, probably not so much. If I'm not getting good growth on them right now, my chances of getting a harvest are pretty small, actually. But I'll show you here in a minute, because the thing that's inspired me to keep some of the eggplants is that the plants in their little red cups actually look pretty good compared to these scraggly tomato plants, which are kind of looking like they're getting worn out. The eggplants actually don't look bad. They actually look pretty good. So that's kind of made me think twice about terminating those eggplants. And as much as this might seem like a waste, and certainly at some level it is, you know, I could just grow less to begin with, could put a little more effort into finding people to give these away to, or setting up a giveaway process in some format. At the end of the day, from a gardener's perspective, I don't really think of it as a waste. I think of this as optionality. These plants gave me options. I don't need those options anymore, but they gave me options up through this point in the gardening season. And so that was their value. The value of growing all those plants was to give me options. It wasn't to have all those plants necessarily come to fruition and fruit. And I think that's just a different way of thinking about it. I think often we think, well, we plant these things, especially if you're planting from seed, you have the ability to grow a lot more at a lower cost than if you're buying starts. I wouldn't buy a bunch of starts from the nursery at the cost that you buy them at, and then just for the possibility that I might plant them and then throw a bunch away later. I wouldn't do that with plants I bought from the nursery, because when you have somebody else grow them for you like that, it is relatively expensive, and that would, financially for me anyway, that would be, I would feel like that was wasteful. But here, the cost of growing the seedling, especially since I can reuse the soil. Some of the fertilizer pellets that were in there are also dropping into the bucket. So I'm reusing some of the soil. I'm reusing some of the unspent fertilizer. No, the cost of that optionality was actually fairly low. So reasonable, for me, it seems like a reasonable thing to do, to give myself the options. And then when I planted my tomatoes out earlier, I could review all the tomatoes that I had options from and decide which ones were the best ones to plant. So I got the value from it that way. And then later I had backups. If the initial planting didn't work, I was able to swap it out, which I actually did. If you've seen a prior video, I swapped out a Jersey Devil because the first planting I did died for some reason. And so then I put in one of the other ones and it took off and it's fine now, right? And at this point you wouldn't, I swapped it within a couple weeks. And so at this point you wouldn't even know which one was swapped out if you were to look at my row of tomatoes. So it gave me the ability to have backups. And after that, it gave me the ability to still have the option if I found other places to plant tomatoes, or if I needed to swap other things out. I still had that option, those options up until now, but now is a good time to kind of terminate it and say, I need or couldn't use those options, right? Like if I found a place to plant a tomato 3 or 4 weeks from now, it doesn't help, because it's not going to be in its larger growing space where it can produce tomatoes long enough to be helpful to me in my garden. Most likely. I mean, there's always kind of exceptions, rare things that happen, miracles in your plants that something might happen, but on average, that's my assessment. Okay. All right, well, let's see what I have to look at next over here. Well, I have a bunch of kales, and I think what I might do is I might save those for a little bit and see if I can get around to potting them up, because those would make good fall plants. I'll show you an example. So I've got a kale here, and I can't envision right now where in my main garden I can put it, but if I can pot it up, let's take a look at what its root structure looks like. So it's root bound. Something needs to happen here, but if I could pot it up, let it keep growing, maybe in a few weeks' time, the garlic's going to come out. Other things are going to happen. I think, I still have a couple of cabbages in the garden that may come out. So I may develop some room essentially over time that I can put these in for the fall garden. So that'll be good. Or I might, if I can figure out how to put them into some larger containers and keep them to say September, October, then as my summer crops come out, like a zucchini, I might terminate because it's just over. You'll see later in the season, we'll talk about powdery mildew will come on and things like that. So I may terminate a zucchini plant, have room for some kale plants, stuff like that. So just having some larger kale plants ready to go to put in place so that I can have that kind of more fall garden might be cool. So I'll try that. Problem will be where you'll see that I may give up on it is if I don't get the time to put these into larger containers in the next week or two, then these might just start to become ragged and just, they're root bound and they're too stunted at that point, and the whole thing just might not be worth it at that point. So it'll be a timing game because I've got other priorities in the garden. So I'm not committing here to absolutely saving this plant, but for today I'm going to save it is what I'm saying. So I have I have a bunch of these more decorative peppers. They'll never really get larger than this here, and they just turn different colors, and they're a Thai chili pepper. So I don't grow them to, you could harvest them and maybe make a chili sauce out of them, right? But I haven't been ambitious enough to do that. I grow them for decorative purposes. I'm gonna keep these around for another couple of weeks because they're designed to grow in small and compact. So I can probably keep them in these containers for a little while longer. You can see kind of their root system is already bound there, but they can go a little while longer. And then expecting that I'll be getting a lot more of these cream buckets going, and so I need all these ice cream buckets to plant the rest of my dahlias. But if not, then I may want to still plant out some of these decorative peppers. So I'm going to keep them for now, rethinking that. It's kind of a process, right? I got to emotionally get ready to get rid of things that I'm not really going to need. There's some cucumber plants or some failed squash containers. The ones that are clearly failed, like there's nothing growing in them, are easy, right? The failed squash, the failed cucumber ones, I eat cucumbers, as I may have heard me talk about in prior videos. I grow the cucumbers just for the sake of growing them in the garden. I like to grow different things even if I don't necessarily eat them myself, but with such a small space, I don't have the luxury of doing that. And so now that I'm out of space in the garden, I don't anticipate having more space to grow cucumbers at this stage. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of those. And these wouldn't even be good to give away now. They're past due. I really needed to get some good growth on them by now in order to, I think, do well for this season in any way. So that's it. It's time. It's time for those to go. Now I've got, these buckets are totally full, so I'm gonna start filling this one here. I'm getting a lot of reuse out of potting soil. I mean, I've filled 2 buckets with just terminating plants. I'll fill this third, so that's a good. They're just empty pots. They're pumpkins that never sprouted. And as a practical matter, as it turns out, I never would have had space in the garden to plant anyway. Okay. That's it for this project for now. I'm gonna take a hard look at these stock tanks and see what I might, what space I might reclaim in these stock tanks right over here over my shoulder. Okay, well, I have got some broccoli in here. And then I've got some curly leaf kale. So let me harvest the broccoli here first. These are relatively smaller heads here. A few leaves on them because when we cook this kind of broccoli, we'll typically cook it with the leaf. And so we've got a broccoli there. There's another one here. This is a sprouting type broccoli. So this is typically the kind of harvest I'm getting in terms of a sprouting broccoli from this driveway garden. That is, I'm not getting, you'd want for a meal, for a family, you'd want, maybe 5 times that amount at least, right? But what I've been doing is I'll harvest this and then I already have some that I've harvested like this that's been sitting in the fridge for a week. So it means I'm not eating it as fresh as it could be, but I'm grouping it up. I'm batching it up so that there's more of it together, and then my wife will pull from that for making a dinner usually. Okay, I think that's all the broccoli that I have in here. I'm gonna throw a rubber band around that broccoli just to keep it together in my basket, separate from the kale. I'm also throwing in the same basket. I'm looking around at the garlic and it is looking like it's definitely ready now, at least in terms of the dryness of the stem and the leaf. So we got to put that on the agenda to come out here and harvest that. Let's do this curly kale. It's hiding in there. They're not big plants, but it's a different kind of kale than the Dino kale I was harvesting earlier. The thing about this one is that it's usually a little not as obvious if there's pest damage because the leaves are frilly anyway. This was I think it was called a Scottish blue kale. It was just a seed packet I'd picked up from a nursery. I think Ed Hume seeds at one point. And I've been planting from that packet for years now. Dino kale to this type of kale. The reason I grew this was, well, I had the seeds, and so why not? And also just some variety. I mean, even if I have my favorite, it's nice to have some different types of things. So you're not always presenting the same thing on the dinner table every week. If you can, may not be much in terms of, not real variety in terms of total how people think of it as the same kind of vegetable anyway, but provide some visual variety. It's not exactly, it doesn't look exactly the same on the plate, for what that's worth. Punch these together. Okay, got the broccoli, we got the kale that's in here. There's still some Dino kale as I look back where I harvested earlier. Now I'm seeing, feels like there's more here, but I think this guy just mostly needs to be cleaned up. I don't want to get bogged down in trying to harvest that right now, trying to figure that out. What else is in here that I might deal with? There's a yellow summer squash forming, but it's not ready yet. Let's check out the peppers that are right here. This is a nice big pepper plant. Looks like it's, not sure what kind it's going to be. Maybe it's going to be a jalapeno. Okay, I think we're ready to move our way that way and see what else we might harvest. Hello there. I am harvesting some kale here. I'm gonna be doing some harvests this morning and wasn't thinking about kale particularly, but when I saw all of it, I said, yeah, it's time to make use of some of this kale. So I'm gonna harvest that, and when I harvest kale, I just leaf it. I just harvest one leaf at a time, let the rest of it grow. A lot of this kale that's coming in now can continue for the whole season, all the way past October, actually. I do it this way. So I did a video a while back where I made the comment that the amount of holes that I tolerate on veggies depends on abundance. So there's a lot of kale, so I'm not going to tolerate a ton of holes, but a little bit of holes. There's a couple teeny holes in this one right here is fine. And then to the extent that There's a couple things I can do. Like if I've got a big old hole like that, I don't need to take the whole leaf. I can just cut the end off that has the hole, and then put that together there. I'm putting these together in a bunch. That way I can kind of rubber band them together in a bunch. That's how I typically will do the kale. Find it's often easier than just letting them be individual loose leaves in my basket. This is a perfect leaf right here. Look at that one. That's exactly what I'm looking for. They can get, I mean, you can have some of these kales will have much bigger leaves. The bigger they grow, the tougher they tend to be though. So I think kind of getting I don't harvest them at the baby size, although you could have a lot of baby kale, which would be good eating. Do come along and grab I'll grab a baby kale leaf to eat out in the field, so to speak. So I'll do that, but otherwise I let them get to this kind of medium size here, but ideally before they get too big and too tough. And the goal is to leave a few leaves on the plant so that the solar collectors of the plant can keep creating energy for it. And I usually will group the same variety together for multiple plants. So like this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think I can get more leaves in a bunch than that. So I'm gonna keep going, move from that plant over to this one here. I'm looking for caterpillars hiding on these leaves as I cut them. I don't want to bring caterpillars into the kitchen if I don't have to. The 2 plants I've been cutting from here are new for this season, but I've got one back here that's actually left from last year. So I was mentioning that depending on how you care for it, your kale can last and leaf in the garden for a while. You might get more of an abundance of kind of the harvestable leaves by starting fresh. There's going to be more harvestable leaves on this size than usually on this size after it's been overwintered and through a rough patch, but I don't know, this actually has quite a bit on it, so that may not be entirely always the case. I've got holes all up and down the leaf, and given the amount of abundance I have today, definitely something like this is not worth it to me. This one is otherwise relatively small. Here. One advantage of clipping off the leaves that have holes in them is you might be getting rid of those small caterpillars that you don't see and maybe hiding in those leaves, and you can just get rid of them right there. That's close to about a bunch that I would bundle, but let me go ahead and grab leaves off this guy here first, and then I'll finish my bundle here. Good leaves off this old guy. Like I said, they tend to be a little bit rougher, tired, maybe sometimes more susceptible to pests sometimes. Okay. That's everything in this zone for now that I'm gonna harvest. I think I will keep looking for kale. Okay, well, I've got my bunch of kale here, so I am going to just bunch that up with my rubber band. Just get a bulk order of rubber bands from Amazon. They're cheap, easy to capture your harvest, and throw it in my basket, and away we go. Well, I'm in a different part of the west beds here, and I've got another kale. This is another one that was planted this year, and so I'm going to be harvesting from that. And then right next to it, I've got some size beets to go ahead and pull out. So I'm going to do both of those together while we're here together. Grab my. All right. And usually when I'm harvesting, I'll have a harvest basket and a compost, throwaway basket at the same time, because I'm either, when it comes to something like this, leafing out the kale, I'm either harvesting it or throwing it away, depending on how many holes it has and what my appetite is for stuff with holes. Leave that one. It's interesting that on some leaves the caterpillar holes are at the top, and on some leaves they're at the bottom, and some they're all over the place. It's just this one's fairly clean. Sometimes you can just snap the leaf off like that. You don't necessarily need to cut it. There we go. One more. And then that's good. I'm leaving the rest of the solar collectors there. And that's that. For the kale, let's take a look at the beets. Okay. If you watched videos that I had earlier this year harvesting beets, you can of course eat the beet greens, and they can be good eating. We're looking for more solid greens this time of year, so I actually might do that. Some of these beet greens actually look not bad, not too bad, so I might save a few of them for the purpose of becoming salad greens. Although usually in the salad greens, what you're looking at is the beans. Baby greens from the beets, I should say. There we go. Not too bad. Goes there for for a second. Oops, lost my knife. That's a nice sized beet. Let me get my garden knife secured there. The face is right in the sweet peas and they smell delicious. Thinking, given the time that these have been in here, these small ones, I'm just going to go ahead and take out. I've got some more kales left that I can put in the garden, so this gives me a nice spot to put another kale plant. Or a flower. I've got some newer, I've got some additional flowers I could drop in there. Maybe I should do both. Looking for if there's any clean beet greens to add to my beet green pile. Clean, by that I mean no bug damage. The bug damage that I see here comes from leaf miners, and they get inside the leaves, and so it's not. That's one where most of the time I'm like, holes don't matter anyway, but when there's leaf miner damage, I don't usually like to save the leaves anyway, because they're embedded in the leaves somehow. There's another pest video we can do. Leaf miners. Okay. Got some more beets that are kind of hanging around the corner here. Okay. It's got a few beets there. Let me throw a little rubber band around my beet greens. If I find some more beet greens, I'll add those to the pile here so I have something more substantial. And there's some shishito peppers back here that are totally ready. I think we'll separately go on a pepper hunt in a minute, but may as well just grab these while we're here. Ready from the standpoint that I like to get them before they're turning red and they're blushing. The shishito peppers are blushing. You see that? Not because they're embarrassed, but because that's what they do when they have been on the vine long enough. All right, I am harvesting some more kale. This time I have this kale around the cherry tree, one Dino kale. This is a red, I forget what the full variety is called, but it was like a specialty kale that actually the seed packet cost a little more than average. So, and it does look nice in the garden, so I think that's why. And maybe some will find it good eating too. I don't like a lot of frilliness on my kale when I eat it. I really do like kind of the fatness of these of a Dino kale. So this is my favorite kale to actually eat, but I like to grow variety. Okay, stacking my leaves over to the side, and then I'll bunch them in a second here. Got a little cauliflower growing in here. Actually, this may be all there is to it. I don't know if it'll get much bigger. We'll see. What could happen is it just starts splitting on me. So I'm going to pay attention. If the head starts kind of opening up, then I will just go ahead and harvest that little cauliflower. It's a nice surprise. I didn't know if I did. I remember now that I did plant some, but I wasn't remembering that I planted cauliflower, and I certainly wasn't, when I planted it, wasn't really convinced I would get any because of our space constraints here. ragged. The other pest that I'm not seeing it here yet, but the other pest that I don't mess around with, I mentioned earlier, I don't really mess around with trying to keep leaves if they're infested by leaf miners, and I don't usually try to keep the leaves if I've got an aphid colony going on, because the aphids will just coat it. It's just not worth it to try to clean them off and try to figure that out, for me anyway. But I don't have any aphid colonies that I'm seeing here, so that's good. There we go. So there's an example. I do have an aphid colony right there, see? So yeah, I'm not gonna try to wash that off or salvage this or anything. It otherwise has holes in it anyway, so I'll just throw that over. Brassicas like this, they tend to get aphids when the plant is bigger, older, more stressed. That's what I find with aphids, is that they're very good at seeking out the plants that are particularly stressed for whatever reason. Although I don't know specifically what would make a kale in this bed stressed. This bed's been pretty well babied. You see me work on it all the time, but having myself a little bite of kale while I'm working on this. Okay. Leave the rest of that. It's not doesn't look attractive in the garden right now, but it will. There's no reason to do what I'm doing right now. From a plant standpoint, what's best for the plant, it's not at all best for the plant to do what I'm doing right now. I'm just doing it because I'm trying to get rid of it. Usually what happens is that these pieces here where the branches were cut off or broke, they dry up and then kind of falls off and it starts to look like this down here. So, okay. Let's take a look at this purple kale, red kale, purple kale over here. Yeah, there's more aphids. Maybe because they find that they can hide maybe they survive the ladybugs hiding in the frilly leaves here maybe. Compared to the flat leaves on the other kale, they can't hide as easily. The ladybugs and predatory wasps, I think I've seen quite a few of those lately in the garden. Got a chard back here that's got leaf miner damage on it, so I'm just pulling that off while I'm here. Pull off these lower leaves to the kale. I'll just pull them off and bring them over where I can see them better. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything I want to keep here yet. Holes, aphids. Just old and crusty. I'm folding these leaves over so that it keeps in hopes that I can keep the cauliflower more white. If the cauliflower gets too much sun exposure, it turns the off color. I'm just breaking the stem on the leaf and folding it over, which is probably questionable, but the typical way you do it is you kind of group the leaves up and then you tie them up. If I wasn't so lazy, I would do that. You tie them up around there and that helps Helps keep your cauliflowers nice and white if you're trying to get that look for the market. Okay. Yeah, I'm struggling to get, yeah, I guess I'll just cut it off. I'm struggling to get from this purple kale, I'm struggling to get enough leaves that don't have a ton of, not a ton, but more aphids than I want to deal with on them. Well, I'm going to go on a pepper hunt around the garden now, and since I was over here by the cherry tree anyway, I figured I'd start here. I've got jalapenos growing in a lot of places, and I like to pick while they're still green. I don't eat jalapenos fresh. I like to cut them up and make a sauce out of them, or I cut them up and then I put them with some vinegar and maybe a little bit of sugar and salt. And sometimes if the garlic's ready, we'll chop up the garlic and throw it in there too. And then I don't do like real canning, so I'm putting them in a refrigerated sauce that's perishable. So I mean, you make it a couple weeks or so, I think, but I go through it quite a bit. I use it as my primary sauce every dinner once I get it going. I think we may have enough in the garden to get it going. Over here, got some big padrons. Check those out there. Yeah, padron peppers there. Oh, a couple more. I think that's it for behind the cherry tree, so we'll have to go look around a little bit to see what else might be here. Oh, I discovered I have another kale back here that I might want to consider. Well, doesn't have that many leaves, so I'll leave it. I don't know if you remember this area, but this is the ice cream bucket patch where I just put in a bunch of ice cream buckets that have peppers and eggplants. And then back there is an actual real pot with a big old zucchini in it. We're on the pepper hunt here, so we're gonna be investigating in here to see what might be in here. There's nothing on those. This is an eggplant here. There we go, we got some fat little, perfect for my pepper sauce, these fat little jalapenos. And this is also jalapeno, but they're not fat and little. Now these are all from the same seed packet, so it's interesting. I think I'm just getting different results. Some are growing long, some are getting short and fat. Guess that's a lot of things grow that way, I suppose, right? Let's see. I think I've got a bigger one back here. That's probably an Anaheim. I'm gonna leave that and let it grow up a little bit more before I harvest it. But the Anaheims I'll harvest when they're good size but still green. I'll try to harvest them before they turn red. I've got some shishitos back here, of course. Just a few, but I've been harvesting them from around the garden, so when you put it all together, we've got a decent amount of shishitos over the last week anyway. It's more, actually I think I probably just picked I may have just picked a Jimmy Nardello by accident. I'm not sure. I didn't want to do that. The Jimmy Nardellos are longer and they'll turn red, and I want to leave those until they do turn red because that's when they're nice and sweet. Okay. I think that's it. Checking out the eggplant. Got a flower there. It's nice. I might actually get an eggplant. We'll see. That's it. Well, that's it for this part of the pepper hunt. Maybe all of it, because I already did it by the cherry tree. I did it over here. There's a few scattered peppers around, but maybe not enough to really bring you guys along. So pepper hunt is, this morning anyway, is modest, but I've been getting about this amount the shishitos and padrons anyway, every other day or so for the last week. So I've got a bunch stored up that I'm gonna put these with and ready to eat or make a sauce out of or something. Well, the sweet peas are still going. You've caught me doing one of my favorite tasks when I want to kind of just stand up straight and enjoy the smell and think, not have to do anything too hard. Coming along and deadheading the sweet peas and trimming off any of the pea pods I can see that will hopefully let them keep going. There. Yep. There's a garlic scape hiding in there. I really did just plant the garlic everywhere, didn't I? Okay, here we go. Maddie's figured out the sweet peas in the last couple of weeks, so she comes out here and smells them and then tells everyone else that they have to smell them. It's been fun this season watching her. Whenever we have guests or family or friends over, she gives them a garden tour, and it's always a little bit surprising how much I realize she's been paying attention. Like, she knows what some of the various plants are and is able to tell them what they are. But of course, her primary motive for coming out in the garden is to do a berry hunt and get all the strawberries and blackberries and raspberries off the one bean that we have for raspberries, and then pretty soon she'll be tackling the blueberries. They'll probably be ready by sometime next week, if not earlier. Okay, well, that's all I can see.
It's doing good.
The garden is doing good?
Yeah.
Yeah? What's your favorite thing in the garden?
The strawberries.
The strawberries, of course, yeah. What about kale?
Yeah.
You like kale? Really? You want to eat some right now?